their hands on it. And it's still ongoing. Any patent you have to fight with like a bulldog, and they will burn any city down to get it to, it's a patent war. Trump knew it. His father knew it. Lots of people like that. It's still ongoing. But we had to find creative ways to conceal time tech from the hands of very evil people. And so it became like a game through time. I talked a little bit about the use of different bodies and whatnot, and we used certain things that are advantage to throw off the enemy and the people that were stalking it through time. Kind of like a game of, matryoshkas, those little Russian dolls. Where's the original person? But I'll tie that in once I introduce John Titor and who he was. But one thing, can I just say one thing? You asked me a question before about how the bases were connected. Before I forget, I just want to tell you.
Yes.
A main source that they're connected to is the underground, humongous communication network cables that go on the bottom of the ocean floor and other areas. And it's like this vast network of connections that are also connected to these computers. But a lot of it originates in the marine kingdom. And I think one of these horns will be a beast, one of the horns that rises out of the sea too, because it is a technology under there that is interlaced with the planet and the planetary grid network. So it's kind of like an aspect of a tech beast too. And then I don't know if you've ever seen those metal pillars that appeared all over the world overnight, the Arizona desert, different parts.
What is up with that?
That is also part of the quantum programs. And what we did is we put quantum data packets into those pillars to anchor back into the earth, kind of like a crystal would, so that we could anchor the quantum data, the correction of it, back into the timeline. Because there can be use of quantum computing without having to feed that computer like lab-grown dead brain tissue, which then would make it a synthetic quantum beast computer ultimately that feeds off of dense life energy. So there can be an organic quantum computer that's good, just like you can make a good vaccine without all that other stuff in it. Okay, so I'll get back to what you just asked me. I'm going to tie it in. I really will. Brief synopsis, John Titor. That name is a code name. It's not a real person's name. Sorry to ruffle some feathers there, but there's an old NSA guy out there that's just an actor that says he's him, but that's not our original Johnny boy. John's story is super long. Basically, he was a base kid that let himself get stretched out farther than anyone's gone, to the point where we lost him literally in time mission directives and across the board. And what happened to him is that he did things that nobody has ever possibly seen, and they didn't know what to do with him. He actually did go to 2045, but then he came back and reported that it was a false Bush Rothschild's created future, and he had hit a false future wall, he said. And then he started going backwards in time, and this goes into the tech. At one point, the looking glass was portable like alien glass, and it had a sentient fluidity to it. So this glass, this Alienware tech, is based on intention. So when you would be sitting in a chair or something and you time travel, the main driving factor would be your consciousness, because your consciousness has to connect to a certain frequency and point and be directed by that alone, like as its through line, as an arrow. So the looking glass, ultimately the quantum one, is on the throne of seeing glass in God's throne room. But what man was trying to do is recreate it, like we named things like, the helmet of God and these other things for their technology, but they're just copying. They try to counterclaim everything in creation. So this looking glass, it actually operated as a mass quantum lens, like a viewing port. They alluded to this in certain movies where like a time traveling device would look like a rotating eyeball or something. That goes back to ancient times where planets would be lined up in correct order, looking at you, like a red, a blue, and a white planet that would look like an eyeball. through the looking glass. So this tech actually became portable. It could be like a big lens that was like a concave lens that you could actually place on a building window. You could use certain tech to put it on a street post, say, to create a time gate, to create a time window that would have a closing point, other things like that, and other precarious areas in plain sight to be activated. So the tech was like a flawless lens that could blend in with your environment, so to speak. And this is going to get really fringe. I don't have the manual for these things. Disclaimer, I'm only here to introduce topics for disclosure purposes. More light will come on them in the future. But what happened to John is that he almost started becoming autistic in his mind. And his mind, you take somebody that has a chaotic mindset, they can't focus and pinpoint their consciousness to be as useful in time travel as what you would want, per se. So in this stage of tech development, that was alien meshware, the looking lens that reads your brain patterns, he fell through the looking glass thanks to a certain female. Uncalibrated, he physically fell through one of these looking glasses. And what that created was a fragmentation of his consciousness and a shattering of him into pieces like Humpty Dumpty, they said he was, that couldn't be put back together. So when he came back, he would just pop up in different areas in time and didn't know what he was doing. And he was the most fragmented person that has ever been seen in the programs because he was scattered across time in different stations of identity is what happened to him. So his story is kind of similar to the Watchmen movie, John Osterman, but John Titor became something that was scary like that, ghost-like, an apparition that you couldn't pinpoint him. He was in too many places at once. So his different stations of identity got scattered throughout the timelines. And then he said that he couldn't stop traveling and interfacing with himself. He'd randomly pop up, say, at a Civil War battlefield or something, and he had no idea what to do or what he was doing there. So it's like we had a brief window of time with him, almost like we had to babysit him. And he became a pain in the programs. So he taught us a lot of good things, though. He taught us how to use like digiclones, holographic selves to offset people that were hunting you. Because if you're going to be like one of the world's best time travelers, you're by default going to be on the Draco's #1 hit list. He called himself a time parser because he said he was always parsing through time or his pieces. He's also given the name Silver Surfer in Oklahoma on the Rothschild's jump trains. Kind of like, we knew how to time surf the time tracks. So that became like one of his nicknames too. And then what happened as a teenager, he gets fully anchored in his body, but then he became suicidal. He couldn't fully integrate. He smashed his truck into a brick wall, and then he had implants that were holding his face together. So then he became kind of a joke to intelligence people because everybody had heard his story. Oh, this famous person, And then when they go to meet him, he would be in these states where he was literally falling apart physically. So, what happened is his file got basically scatter patterned all over the internet so that they do that so that nobody can actually get to the beginning of it or piece it together. So he falls through the glass.
Wow. And okay, so the average person like me or the person that's listening to you on this podcast, it's like, okay, I'm just going to literally Google every keyword that you're dropping, Jerusah, because this is nuts, right? Finds John Titor. What they're going to find is that he's a crackpot hoax, time traveler, this and that, and a book, The Secrets of Time Travel by John Titor. Now, I want you to just give me your opinion on this. Do you think that the person that wrote the book, The Secrets of Time Travel, is the same John Titor that you dealt with in the projects?
I personally haven't read it because I was very close to him and he told me everything that he knew. We shared thousands of memories. And he had pen names in all throughout time. There's books that you just use pen names for. You get some information out, you data drop it, but it was so vast and so far that we literally lost track of everything. A lot of things got kind of what's the word? Through the cracks. They just fell through the cracks. So the past 3 years, I've been trying to put a story together, but I recorded him, but I haven't actually gotten to the point where I can actually put it into understandable context because he was still all over the place in the little bit of time I did have with him. So he got thrown through looking glass, uncalibrated, because it has to biosync with you to certain coordinates and be very precise about it with intent. So in a paranoid mind state, you can't throw somebody through looking glass and just throw them into some time tech. That's crazy because you're going to make a chaotic mess out of it. So that's what happened with him. They experimented with him in a way that I've never seen them experiment with anybody before. He had some research. I don't know if it'll ever come out. He told me that there was a difference between a time body and a clone. Time body, he said, was a placeholder. That was a body created at a given point that had a expiration point, but clones were different. They could live full lives now. This is going to sound very strange too, but he also told me that they actually were trying to send DNA through the looking glass as well and see how far they could get with that and create. I don't know why they did this. Maybe it was they didn't want to, 3D print a body and take the time to do that, or it was something with electrophoresis, it's called. Mm-hmm. Like you can grow a frog's leg with, coating the light in it. You can grow limbs, stuff like that. So I think they're just trying to fast grow a body or manifest a body as a placeholder in time if you put it through the looking glass or something to kickstart the genes in a way, using those codes.
Now, this is interesting. And I'm kind of a listening audience, just understand if you feel like you're being left in the dust, you are. So the thing is, I've talked with people that have time traveling, and I will call them time traveling parts, because there's physical time travel where they put the whole physical body through the jump gate or whatever it is. Then you have the astral time travel where the parts of the soul that can leave the body are put on trade routes or jump through portals that are literally in the astral plane, and then they end up in these other timelines. And so the person could be in that timeline, and it'll be one of their, for a lack of better words, alternate personalities in their alternate personality body in that timeline, physically or otherwise, while the person's physically walking around buying groceries, going to church, and, having life. And so you have time travel in different ways. And even in the projects, I know that they put both bodies and soul parts through portals in the projects. And it seems like time travel runs in certain bloodlines. There are just certain bloodlines where, especially Illuminati bloodlines, where people just have time traveling parts that it's like encoded in the DNA. It's like you get them dissociated and their parts will travel time. And one of the things that I ran into is there will always be an anchor point in the timelines that the parts of the soul frequent. In other words, they may go between here and 1750 United Kingdom and back regularly, but they always have an ability to lock onto that timeline, that time frame, that location. There's like a signature there where it's like, okay, we can find our way back there. We know where it is, and it's a piece of their humanity, which would be like DNA or essence or whatever. And so when you're mentioning these time bodies, I'm thinking, oh, well, that sounds like this. This is so interesting. It's like they're trying to technologically reproduce what can be done through the generational iniquity, linking back to hidden and secret mysteries and technologies that have been piggybacking certain bloodlines through thousands of years. And it's like they're doing this technology reproduction of it to bring more into it. It's just so interesting.
It's a strong delusion because they're not sovereign. They can't create out of thin air a version of themselves. That's what I think they were trying to do, because the Infugor ratio is the real science, where they were trying to recreate the spark of life, what God can only do. And so I've seen electricity they use, a kinetic hydroelectric charge, electrophoresis, things like that, to go at a certain angular rate of particle spin to create a body. There's a certain method that they've figured out that will produce matter. And if you spin it at a certain rate, I've seen them try to use it at electric plants, like nuclear plants, water facilities and stuff. For some reason, there's a lot of supernatural activity, and sometimes you see double razor wires, even if it's a small electrical facility or water plant. I have a lot of memories of fighting beings and things at water plants and electric facilities for some reason, because lightning is a weapon of God, and I think they know that. So the dual science tried to use that lightning bolt to and invert it, but they can never do it, though. That's the thing, and that's why they're under this strong delusion.
A bizarre discovery in the desert just north of the Arizona border.
A giant piece of metal sticking out of the rocks, and no one, this is the weird part, has any idea how it got there or who put it there.
Team 12's William Pitts has more on the monolith mystery.
This helicopter crew is actually out there to count bighorn sheep, so they're looking for things down on the ground. One of the crew members looked out and saw this metal column sticking out of the rock.
Whoa, turn around. And I was like, what? And he's like, there's this thing back there. We got to go look at it.
And that's one way horror movies start.
Okay, the intrepid explorers go down to investigate the alien life form.
That's the other way.
We're kind of joking around that if one of us suddenly disappears, then I guess the rest of us make a run for it.
But when the Utah DPS helicopter crew got there were no aliens. But there was this metal monolith stuck in the ground.
They've cut it in?
Somebody cut into the rock, perfectly shaped to the same shape of this monolith, and it's installed, maybe 2, 3, maybe 4 feet deep.
It's about 12 feet tall, maybe 3 feet wide, made of riveted sheet metal.
We have no idea how long it's been there. It could have been there, 40, 50 years, maybe more, who knows? And it may have only been there a couple years.
Utah officials aren't saying exactly where it is. They don't want people getting lost or hurt looking for it. But we think we found it. It's about 90 miles north of the Arizona border, miles from any road, 20 miles from a town. That shadow right there on satellite pictures taken in 2016. If we go back 1 year, it disappears.
Who does this kind of stuff?
That's the real question. Utah officials say there's no writing on it, no clues, nothing. If it's some sort of art installation, it's one no one ever advertised, unless the discovery of something this weird was the art.
That's been about the strangest thing that I've come across out there.
It is illegal to put up your own art installation on public lands in Utah, but Utah officials say they don't know what to do with it yet. It might be too hard and too damaging to pull it out. William Pitts, 12 News.